Hey guys, Sheet the Geek here with what would probably be my first ever Pokemon TCG video. I very recently started playing the game. Um, I want to say earlier this year. I'm trying to think about what month. I think it was in the summer. I started playing the Pokemon TCG. My local store recently reopened after obviously the pandemic and all that other stuff. And then they were always doing Commander for Magic. They weren't doing Pokemon until very recently, because I guess there was a renewed interest at the store to have Pokemon. And because I was already there playing Magic, it was like, you know what, I can easily get back into this game. The cards are pretty cheap. Um, and now a couple months later, I have three decks working on a fourth. I'm gonna talk about a fifth here in a second. Um, the format for standard in Pokemon is pretty diverse right now. Mew is kind of taking over, but we'll see if that extends through next year with the next set coming out. Um, again, which I'm gonna talk about. Um, so there were some spoilers that came out for the Brilliant Stars or the V Star set, whatever it ends up being called for in English for Pokemon. Um, a lot of the cards were revealed. Uh, this is a Poke Beach's website. Shaman V Star, Luminion V, the Sinnoh starters, and more from Starbirth, which I believe that's the Japanese name. Our English name will be Brilliant Stars, we believe, for English. What I wanted to focus on was the Chimchar line or the Infernape line. I'm not gonna spend too much time on these, but we have this Infernape. Um, Obviously, fire 150 HP, stage 2. For one fire energy, he has Fire Vortex. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. This attack does 80 damage for each energy card revealed in this way. Then discard those energy cards and shuffle the other cards back into your deck. And he has a second attack for Red Nicholas, Burning Kick, 160 damage. Discard all energy from his Pokemon. Um, both attacks are really good. One retreat cost. But that first attack, what does that remind you of? It reminds you of this guy, Groudon from Celebrations, who has Magma Volcano. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck. This attack does 80 damage for each energy card you discarded this way. Literally the same attack on different Pokemon, but it's a stage 2, not a basic. 20 more HP, and only one fire energy gets this attack off. As soon as I saw this, I was like, I have to make a deck out of this because it's literally Groudon and a fire type. The Kyogre Groudon deck is a bit of a meme troll deck, but it can still get wins. It's just randomly consistent, so it's inconsistent, but it can just randomly just beat people because of how the deck functions. Um, with that deck, obviously you just play Cryogonal, use a water energy, use its attack to look at the top 6, and then you attach any energy you find there that powers up Kyogre. You can also add Groudon to the deck to play both. I prefer that build over the mono water Kyogre build because Groudon can hit the actives for a lot, and Kyogre only hits the bench. This guy also only hits the active as well. He can't hit the bench, but I think that's still decent because it's just a one fire energy startup attack, and he just goes. And obviously, you do the math. You know, if you get all 5 energy, 8 times 5 is 40. That's 400 damage he can potentially do. Realistically, he only needs to reveal 3, and that's still 240, which is enough to kill most Vs that don't have like Cape of Toughness attached or anything like that. And then 4 will still kill the vast majority of VMAXs at 320. So insane damage output for a 1 fire energy attack on a very plain looking at first stage 2 Pokemon. So like, how do we make a deck out of this guy? I actually already came up with a rough draft. There are some differences between the Kyogre Groudon deck and this deck. Is obviously this deck is mono fire. it actually helps because obviously that deck also plays Volcarona, as you would in this deck, to put the energies back into the deck so you don't run the risk of decking out. There's one key difference with how his attack works for Groudon. Groudon just discards all 5 cards no matter what they are, even if they are energy or not. Infernape, if the wording is correct for the translation, which I assume that they are, only the energies get discarded, and then the other cards get shuffled back into the deck. That's arguably better or worse depending on the scenario from the Groudon, but for 1 fire energy, it makes it set up a lot faster. So like with a deck out of this, you basically can play, you know, for the Chimchar, for the Monferno, for the Infernape. That's 12 cards. Add 4 rare candies and 4 boost shakes because I assume you'd play both just in case. Now you're at, what's that? 4 times. You're at 20 cards in deck. And then looking at like the rest of the stuff you play in Kyogre Groudon, you'd play 4 Sonias. So that puts you at 24 cards in deck. And you really only need to resolve potentially 2 of the Sonias. And then 1 Volcarona, which is mandatory, 25. You might play 2. It depends on the build. The rough draft I'm working with, I'm only playing 1, so it's 25. And then you still obviously need to have the energy in deck. Kyogre Groudon deck plays anywhere from 30 to 40. I usually start with the base of 30, then add in to fill in extra space in the deck. So with the 25 and the 30, that still leaves us with 5 slots left in the deck for anything we want, if not energy, which I think is the other advantage that this deck will have over the Kyogre Groudon deck as like a new kind of fun troll meme deck with Infernape, is that you can actually run a slightly lower energy count. Because his attack only requires 1 fire energy. You get the faster startup. You don't need Cryogonal to attach energy to ramp to set up. So you might even be able to play less than 30 energy and have the deck still function fairly well. I'm going to still try to keep it above 30, so at least half the deck is still going to be energy, so that way he's hitting more often than he's missing. Because like I said, he really only needs to flip over 3 to kill most Vs, and then 4 for most VMAXs. Even with the Kyogre Groudon deck, you rarely flip over all 5 energy for either Kyogre or Groudon. It's usually, it averages around 3 to 4 anyway, which is still good. That's the bare minimum you usually want. You don't want to whiff with like 1 or 2. I consider that a whiff, but that being said, the one issue with the deck is guaranteeing that you have the Chimchar to start off with, to go into Infernape. Obviously the Kyogre Groudon deck, the advantage was that, you know, they're both basics. You can just search for them, with Quick Ball, with Sonia, anything that can search basics. But with this deck, you really only have the 4 of these as your basic. That's not ideal. The Kyogre Groudon deck, you had at minimum like 8 basics if you were playing like 4 Kyogre, 4 Groudon, and then 4 Cryogonal would make 12 basics, and you want any of them to start with realistically, and your deck will function. Cryogonal was obviously better than starting with, you know, Kyogre Groudon you're active, because having to wait 3 turns to attach energy, you're probably going to lose that game, but surprisingly enough, I managed to pull it off myself several times playing the deck. But that's not something you should count on. That's really luck based. You always want to start with Cryogonal and then a Kyogre or Groudon on the bench, so that way next turn you know, retreat out the Cryogonal, and then the Kyogre Groudon comes up and you just start going with the deck. You just go. So I was trying to figure out how do we make this deck a little bit more consistent, and an old card came up, which obviously if you see the tabs up here, there's a card that this deck used to play, Bucephalon, which is actually the first Pokemon deck I started playing when I came back into the game. There was a card that this deck played that helped with the searchability of the deck, which also, this is ironically enough a fire deck. And that was Cramorant V. Cramorant V has Beak Catch, which is search your deck for 2 cards and put them into your hand and then shuffle your deck. This card is probably going to be necessary for the Infernape deck to get off the ground. It solves almost all the major issues what this deck has and basically acts as kind of like the Cryogonal of this deck. It takes away the need to have to start with the Chimchar, so you're not mulliganing like a whole bunch of times to just to even start the game with. Normally that's not going to matter too much, but you still don't want to give the opponent too many cards, because you might still just be, you know, giving your opponent the win depending on how many cards they draw, depending on how many times you have to mulligan your opening hand because you started with no basics. Because I mean, realistically, you only have 4 basics. Like, the odds are really bad on that. Increasing it to 8 increases your chances dramatically by playing, you know, 4 Cramorant V's in the deck. Starting with this is actually not even horrible. It does make the setup 1 turn. It takes an extra 1 turn setup for this deck as opposed to Cryogonal Kyogre. With Cryogonal Kyogre, because they were all basics, you just have to have the Cryogonal and the water energy, and then once you got your turn to attack, that was your setup, and then you were done. If Cryogonal died, it didn't matter. This deck will function the same way. Now, obviously, if you open with Chimchar, and I mentioned, you know, Boost Shake or Infernape with Rare Candy, you still have your setup. You know, obviously, you need to have a Fire Energy too. You can top deck that for the next turn if you don't have one. But just in case you don't open with Chimchar after mulliganing, opening with Cramorant V still works. V Catch is only 1 colorless, so you can use the Fire Energy for it. It gets 2 cards instead of 1, which makes it like probably the best Pokemon you could even play for this deck. And it's probably this is probably the only attack in standard that lets you just get any 2 cards for the low cost of just giving up your attack for the turn. With my build, the cards you would search for would be Sonia Boost Shake. And then next turn, after you obviously attack, you get Sonia Boost Shake. If you don't already have your Chimchar in hand, you Sonia, get 2 Chimchars. That's 2 of them out of the deck. Obviously, you bench them, get a fire and put a Fire Energy on one of them, and then you Boost Shake. And then that's your turn, and now you're set up for next turn. And then if they kill Cramorant V, yeah, you give up 2 prizes, which is a downside to this build versus Kyogre Groudon. But they might not kill it. But that's like a small price to pay to get guaranteed to get this Infernape set up and going, because the next turn he's killing whatever they have out potentially. The other obviously bonuses of Cramorant V is that his weakness is different. He's weak to lightning, not water, which is obviously super common right now with everyone playing Inteleon line in all their decks. Inteleon himself can kill this thing more than likely. Cramorant's weakness to electricity, which isn't as common right now. He resists fighting, which is actually very common right now, which is actually a bonus, so he's probably going to be hard to kill. And his retreat cost is 1 colorless, which is insane given that his attack lets you search for 2 cards. So that 1 energy you use to attach to him the Beak Catch to search for 2 cards gets him out of the active spot, so you don't even have to worry about playing switches or escape ropes, which you want to minimize the non-energy cards in this deck to maximize your reveals for his Fire Vortex attack, so that way you're doing as much damage as possible. So it actually works out perfectly for this deck. So like with my rough draft build, adding in 4 Cramorant V's give you 1 energy space left, so you'll probably play 31 energies. That's still over half. That's still pretty good. Now obviously these cards aren't out yet, so I haven't been able to play test this, and this obviously is just a rough draft, you know, theory Pokemon thinking out loud. I'm not sure if this deck, you know, is actually gonna play well in real life, but looking at the numbers in the rough draft, I think it'll actually work pretty well with Cramorant being there with 31 energies. If you're still able to mill on average 3 to 4 energy on each attack, you're still pretty much killing anything in the active spot with his attack. It's just about a guarantee. Like, you just have to get him set up. Which that's the only downside to this deck versus Kyogre Groudon, is that you only have the 4 Infernapes, and then that's it. Once you run out of your Infernapes, your deck is basically done. So like once the cards come out and I build the deck and I start playtesting and testing out the ratios, it may be possible to go under 30 energy for a couple extra trainers. The only cards I would add would either be like another quick ball, escape rope, switch, boss's orders, or maybe like a Clara to shuffle some of these guys back into the deck so you can draw into them again if they kill them all. So like if one Cramorant V dies, yeah, it sucks, but then it's like, okay, you still have all 4 of your Infernapes should be ready to go. You should at least have 2 of these set up if you have the Cramorant V catch first turn. You should have 2 of these guys set up, almost guaranteed to go. For the subsequent turn, which is really good. So I don't want to say necessarily a better setup than Kyogano, Kyogre, or Groudon, but it's actually very, very close to being an identical setup with 2 completely different cards. It just sounds really, really good and looks good on paper. And I already have these because I played the Blacephalon deck when it was out in Standard Legal, so I already have a full set of these. So I'm actually really excited to kind of try this deck out to see if it actually works as well as I think it will. Could be a fun, troll deck like Kyogre Groudon was to play at, locals just to beat people playing Mew or Urshifu or whatever, just to see if it works. So I'm really interested in playing this deck with Cramorant V, because I feel like this will be the Cryogonal for the deck to add the very thin layer of consistency to the deck to guarantee that the deck functions and you can get off the ground from your first or your second turn. And it also still has Spit Shot, which is still fairly decent. If you can get 3 energy on it, hit anything in play for 160 is still really good. It's probably not necessarily killing anything other than Inteleon, but like, if he actually manages to live to like the 3rd turn, because you're able to retreat him out, you still have a Cramorant V out there. And even though the deck plays 4, you don't have to put all 4 into play. You really only want to see one of them. So that's why you play the 4 to guarantee that you have at least one to start with. Because even when the Kyogre Groudon deck, some of the builds don't play 4 Kyogre or 4 Groudon. They only play like 2 or 3 of each. Because ideally, you just want to start with the Cryogonal, and then you get the Kyogre or Groudon onto the bench, and then that's all you need to get the deck going after you start milling some cards and start thinning your deck out. Same thing with this. Even though you have 4 Cramorant V in the deck, you're not playing them all to the field. You're really only going to play 1. The other 3 are either going to stay in your deck or in your hand or in your prizes if you don't draw them. You're not going to be playing them to the field because you're only going to have to be catch once at most. And then if it lives, maybe twice if they manage to kill off your 2 Infernapes that you managed to get set up or semi-set up. You may have to be catch twice just to get another Sonias and Blue Shakes to set up again for the next turn, or like a Quick Ball and a Blue Shake if you already have your Chimchars out. Like I said, the Cramorant V gives you the 8 basic as opposed to the 4, so you have to mulligan less, and you can start with either one of these and the deck will function. You just need the 1 fire energy and then you're good to go. Or with this, you have to have a Blue Shake or a Rare Candy. Blue Shake is better, but that ends your turn, obviously. Also, the deceptive part is with Cramorant V, the opponent's not going to know what deck you're playing, because no deck plays this card right now. Like, literally none of them. People probably forgot this card even exists. I almost did myself. So if you start with Cramorant V, they're not going to be able to play correctly against you until you drop the Chimchars, and even then, they still might not know exactly what you're doing. And then it's like, then they're going to read this guy and they're like, oh, he does 80 damage for each of those fire energies, or each of the energies you reveal. Okay. And at that point, it might be too late because he's, swinging 240 to 400 each turn, killing their actives each time. But yeah, that's it. Just talking out loud. Just wanted to share my thoughts on this deck. It seems really cool. If you guys have any better ideas or suggestions for this deck, feel free to leave a comment below because I do read my comments. I'm interested in playing this as a deck. I think it'll be a fun deck, a cheap deck, and a nice, cool little troll deck to play after the set comes out to utilize the new cards from the new set. It'll be pretty fun. And that's it. Hope you guys keep watching, liking, subscribing. I do appreciate it. Until the next video, I will see you all next time. Thank you.